Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, as we learn from St. Augustine, Doctor of the Church, while we read his book, Confessions. Welcome, Catholic pilgrims. What is the sin of curiosity? Aren't we supposed to be curious? Well, let's see what St. Augustine has to say. Please open to page 241, and we will be reading from Book 10, Chapter 35. I must now speak of a different kind of temptation, more dangerous than these because it is more complicated. For in addition to our bodily appetites, which make us long to gratify all our senses and our pleasures and lead to our ruin if we stay away from you by becoming their slaves, the mind is also subject to a certain propensity to use the sense of the body, not for self-indulgence of any physical kind, but for the satisfaction of its own inquisitiveness. This futile curiosity masquerades under the name of science and learning, and since it derives from our thirst for knowledge, and sight is the principal sense by which knowledge is acquired, in the Scriptures it is called gratification of the eye. For although, speaking correctly, to see is the proper function of the eyes, we use the word of the other senses too, when we employ them to acquire knowledge. We do not say, hear how it glows, smell how bright it is, taste how it shines, or feel how it glitters, because these are all things which we say that we see. Yet we not only say, see how it shines when we are speaking of something which only the eyes can perceive, but we also say, see how loud it is, see how it smells, see how it tastes, and see how hard it is. So, as I said, sense experience in general is called the lust of the eyes because although the function of sight belongs primarily to the eyes, we apply it to the other organs of sense as well, by analogy, when they are used to discover any item of knowledge. We can easily distinguish between the motives of pleasure and curiosity. When the senses demand pleasure, they look for objects of visual beauty, harmonious sounds, fragrant perfumes, and things that are pleasant to the taste or soft to the touch. But when their motive is curiosity, they may look for just the reverse of these things, simply to put it to the proof, not for the sake of an unpleasant experience, but from a relish for investigation and discovery. What pleasure can there be in the sight of a mangled corpse, which can only horrify? Yet people will flock to see one lying on the ground simply for the sensation of sorrow and horror that it gives them. They are even afraid that it may bring them nightmares, as though it were something that they had been forced to look at while they were awake, or something to which they had been attracted by rumors of its beauty. The same is true of the other senses, although it would be tedious to give further examples. It is to satisfy this unhealthy curiosity that freaks and prodigies are put on show in the theater, and for the same reason men are led to investigate the secrets of nature, which are irrelevant to our lives, although such knowledge is of no value to them, and they wish to gain it merely for the sake of knowing. It is curiosity, too, which causes men to turn to sorcery in the effort to obtain knowledge for the same perverted purpose. And it even invades our religion, for we put God to the test when we demand signs and wonders from him, not in the hope of salvation, but simply for the love of the experience. In this immense forest, so full of snares and dangers, I have pared away many sins and thrust them from my heart. For you have given me the grace to do this, O God, my Savior. But as long as my daily life is passed in the midst of the clamor raised by so many temptations of this sort, when can I presume to say that nothing of this kind can hold my attention or tempt me into idle speculation? It is true that the theaters no longer attract me. The study of astrology does not interest me. I have never dealt in necromancy, and I detest all sacrilegious rites. But how often has not the enemy used his wiles upon me to suggest that I should ask for some sign from you, O Lord my God, to whom I owe my humble, undivided service. I beseech you, by Christ our King and by Jerusalem the chaste, our only homeland, that just as I now withhold my consent from these suggestions, I may always continue to ward them off and keep them still farther from me. But when I pray to you for the salvation of another, the purpose and intention of my prayer is far different. For you do what you will, and you grant me, as you always will, the grace to follow you gladly. Yet who can tell how many times each day our curiosity is tempted by the most trivial and insignificant matters? Who can tell how often we give way? So often it happens that when others tell foolish tales, at first we bear with them for fear of offending the weak, and then little by little we begin to listen willingly. I no longer go to watch a dog chasing a hare at the games in the circus, but if I should happen to see the same thing in the country as I pass by, the chase might easily hold my attention and distract me from whatever serious thoughts occupied my mind. It might not actually compel me to turn my horse from the path, but such would be the inclination of my heart. And unless you made me realize my weakness and quickly reminded me either to turn my eyes from the sight and raise my thoughts to you in contemplation, or to despise it utterly and continue on my way, I should simply stop and gloat. What excuse can I make for myself when often, as I sit at home, I cannot turn my eyes from the sight of a lizard catching flies or a spider entangling them as they fly into her web? Does it make any difference that these are only small animals? It is true that the sight of them inspires me to praise you for the wonders of your creation and the order in which you have disposed all things, but I am not intent upon your praises when I first begin to watch. It is one thing to rise quickly from a fall, another not to fall at all. My life is full of such faults, and my only hope is in your boundless mercy. For when our hearts become repositories piled high with such worthless stock as this, it is the cause of interruption and distraction from our prayers. And although in your presence the voices of our hearts are raised to your ear, all kinds of trivial thoughts break in and cut us off from the great act of prayer. I went to school for criminology. Both my bachelor's and my master's are in this field. So because it is my area of interest and I've worked in this field, I naturally am drawn to hearing about things that have to do with it. However, it's been many years since I've worked in the field because I have been homeschooling my children now for 15 years. And the other day I was uploading some content to YouTube and I saw a video on Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy being one of the most well-known serial killers in the U.S. Anyway, the video was an interview with his female cousin where she talks about what it was like growing up with him. And she talks about their relationship once they were young adults and how he was around her even when he was in the prime of his killing sprees and she didn't know it. Very weird. Anyway, I was curious about what she had to say. Now, mind you, Ted Bundy got arrested. He was executed for his crimes in 1989. And through my studies, I already have learned a lot about him, so it's not as if this was new information. But I set myself in and started watching this video. And half an hour later, I stopped watching and told myself that this was such a waste of time. She wasn't saying anything revolutionary. Everything she said was pretty much what I knew she was going to say, given my study of these different kinds of things. And I just wasted a half an hour when I could have been doing something more productive. But I had curiosity. We've all had this curiosity, and social media does a great job of reeling us in. That's why the short videos are called Reels. Titles that always leave you wondering. See what this 80s beauty star looks like now. The reveal is shocking. What happened at this Florida restaurant will leave you dumbfounded. See what this former childhood star looks like today. This is all designed to leave us curious. And every single time I get suckered into watching one of these things, I don't learn anything new. Most of it is AI generated, and it's just an utter waste of time. Watching these things helps my life not at all. Now, St. Augustine didn't have social media at the time, but he talks about how we can have an unhealthy curiosity about corpses, quote unquote, freaks and prodigies, his words, not mine, and things that potentially could be very unsettling to our souls. We are drawn to these things not because they enhance our lives or help us to live them better, but because we just want to know about them. We're curious. And with the advent of phone cameras, everything is caught on camera now, even murders, and the videos of somebody getting murdered get posted to social media and people go to watch. And we shouldn't be watching unless we are directly involved with the case and are trying to solve it. These things steal our peace of mind, disquiet our thoughts, and sometimes desensitize us to horrors. Also, and this is something important to bring up, the sin of curiosity when it comes to astrology predictions, palm readings, fortune telling, mediums, and other quote unquote sacrilegious rites, as St. Augustine calls them, are all strictly forbidden by the church because they are a danger to our souls. I'll say it again and again, but the true, the good, and the beautiful are the things our hearts and minds should be focused on. And it might be good to take stock of what you allow yourself to get ensnared in for the sake of curiosity. If you are like me, there are probably areas where you can trim away unnecessary things. That is all for today, Catholic Pilgrims. I will see you tomorrow, and until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.